right, we're preparing to live stream the meeting on Facebook. So is this downloading? Everybody smile, because this is going to be the first thing people see when they capture it. There we go. Oh, you look lovely, Wandra. So happy you are here. Now we've got to do one more thing. Okay, let me get back to my Zoomy. There we go. All right, this meeting is being live streamed, everybody. I'm hitting record, so just one moment. Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpit Queen, reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And we have a full house tonight with some, we're encompassing Texas and beyond. So introduce Robert Gwaltney on my left from Atlanta, Georgia, my co-host, who has definitely jumped into the Age of Innocence. Then Mandy Haynes from Fernandina Beach, Florida, on Amelia Island. So she's running behind the scenes for us, and she's awesome, you all. Ruthie Landis in the lower left. Yes, and that's not a bird. That's just feathers, okay?
Roses, black roses.
Black roses. Ruthie has embraced the Age of Innocence. She's from Chicago. And we have, for the first time, Wandra. Wandra is here from San Antonio. And we are welcoming also Bill, who is from Fort Worth. They're brand new to our book and film club. And we shall begin tonight's book discussion of the classic book that won the Pulitzer Prize to film, directed by Martin Scorsese, The Age of Innocence. Now, this is an all-star cast, and we've seen them through the years become really famous. We've got Michele Pfiffer, who I fell in love with her, don't laugh, when she starred in Grease 2. I thought she was the cutest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Then we've got Daniel Day-Lewis. My goodness, if you haven't seen Last of the Mohicans, be still my heart. Okay. And then we've got Winona Ryder, and she's been everything from Beetlejuice to, I mean, a million different films. They're all famous now, and we are thrilled to share this another story, classic story of a film set in privilege in New York City. And Robert always has the inside tips on this film, and I know you've done a little research, Robert. This is one of your favorite films. What would you like to share with us tonight?
Well, so the novel was written by Edith Wharton in 1920, and she won the Pulitzer Prize for it in 1921. And she's the first woman to have won the Pulitzer Prize.
Oh my gosh!
And
did not know that.
There's been a silent film version. There have been a couple of play adaptations, even in and of course, the Martin Scorsese film that was released in 1993. And then there was an episode of the original Gossip Girl, and they did an entire episode based on the Age of Innocence. I think they called it the Age of Dissonance.
Are you kidding me? I bet my daughter has seen that.
I love the film adaptation. It was nominated for quite a few Academy Awards. Winona Ryder was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, I believe. And the screenplay was written in only 17 days.
Can you believe that? 17 days to write this. And it's absolutely one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. The cinematography and the attention to detail. Of course, I took a lot of costume, I guess, I've made it my own. I just work out of my closet. So this hat doesn't even usually look like that. It's a big Kentucky Derby hat, but I've rigged it up so it would work more like Michele Pfiffer. I saw her in one scene where she
Countess Olenska.
Yes. And we have a wonderful story told of this young man who is involved with this New York socialite debutante. And she is just the picture of perfection. The dress that just blew me away was the off-the-shoulder creation that was just tulle all the way around, like she was floating in a cloud. And then we have her cousin, right? It's her cousin who comes into the picture. And this is a woman that was married, that was a very unhappy circumstance where she married a man that did not work out. So she's a divorcee. And our main character, Daniel Day-Lewis as Archer, is smitten. He's got the New York Society debutante, and then he meets this woman who's a little of a bohemian as she lives life on her own terms. I can totally relate to that. So for those of you who have not watched it, we don't want to do any spoiler alerts, but we do want you to know that this is one of those films that is just an iconic classic story brought to film, and it's done absolutely, to me, impeccable. If you check out everything from the costumes, the way, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the way the camera filmed this film, because it was very different. Ruthie, I know you're going to have some comments on the characters, because you always have wonderful insights on the way people played out their roles. Is anything you want to lend to the conversation?
Well, I have so much to talk about.
Oh, well, go, girl.
No, I forgot my shoe, because I wanted to begin by kissing the shoe. He bends down, Daniel Day-Lewis, and he kisses her shoe. He kisses her shoe, and then at that other,
a good shoe, Ruthie.
Huh?
It was a good shoe.
It was a lovely shoe. I was going to bring a shoe, and then remember, he unbuttons it, and like that's how he cheats on his wife. He kisses her little
brocaded pink slippers.
Well, then her arm, just like the little wrist, and that's how he cheats on his wife. So, well, I have a bigger question before we get to characters.
Okay.
So my bigger question is, why did Edith Wharton call it the Age of Innocence? Because I felt like I looked up the word innocent, and I just thought it was full of irony, because no one was innocent. I mean, they were brainwashed by the times and everything, but from my point of view, they all were leading deceptive lives, very deceptive lives.
Well,
and I wondered why she chose innocence. Like, that's why when you said about dissonance, I was like, yeah.
But she wrote this in 1920 about something that happened, in the past. So maybe from her perspective, I'm just offering this is a guess. Maybe from her perspective, this was before we really fully understood all the implications and story that was being played out. I mean, I'm guessing. Anybody else have a?
Well, I mean, it was really the age, in the Gilded Age, amongst that class of individuals. It was an age of manners, really, and it's not what's said so much as what's not spoken. Where the truth is. I think that May Welland, though she is shrewd like her mother, she's probably the most innocent and simple, childlike of them all. But the others, you're right. I mean, they're very calculating, but it is.
But she knows Winona Ryder knows that he is in love. She's not innocent to that. She's not oblivious to that. And she still goes on with it. She doesn't take him aside, and, no confrontation. And then Daniel Day-Lewis, just from my point of view, attached to his tragic life story, like even at the end when his son takes him to
Paris,
where he could, like, finally Winona Ryder's a dead duck, she's out of the way, right? And he takes his dad to Paris and goes, claim your love. And he turns and walks away.
Yeah, he's happier with memory. But what's interesting is Newland Archer at that point in the story is only 56 years old.
I know, I counted it up. I said, oh my God, he's just mid-50s.
He's only in his 50s.
Wow.
Well,
you know,
I think the reason why it's called that is because, during that time, I think upper class acted a lot like British upper class.
Mhm.
They had many mistresses and, lovers. And in this case, the man and the divorcee truly loved each other. And the wife also went by that pure, what would you call it? Sort of standard of mannerism, I guess, at the time. She knew it, and she decided just acting like she didn't know was the best way, most gracious way. And the affairs would, even at that time, it was really messy. It was just sort of like entertainment of the upper classes. So I think when they look at the emotional aspect of it, they really loved each other. And the wife knew what kind of man her husband was, that he would not leave her for her cousin. So I think when we look at the feelings between man and woman, how they feel, when we look at the pure sense of that emotion, I think that's very innocent. That's how I look at it.
So, and I think that's awesome, Wandra. I think that's a good take on it. So there's a critical explanation for the title. The Age of Innocence is a title both ironic and poignant. Ironic because the age or period of the novel, the late 19th century, teems with intolerance, collusion, and cynicism.
Correct.
Poignant because the only innocence lost is that of Newland Archer.
Oh.
The only innocence lost. Oh, that's right. Because he is not innocent in any way. Now, would you say that because Michele Pfiffer, she won't follow through with him, will she?
No, she won't.
It was all in their own imaginations and fantasy. In fact, I watched a little video, you can watch it on YouTube, about explaining the different parts of, how Scorsese did the film. And one of the things he did was his view of the camera was done very different than been done before. He focused less on actually the character speaking that we see in films today, but he always panned off and showed the china and the silver and the opulent sideboards and
Trappings.
All the trappings and all the inanimate objects that he was showing us what the upper set of New York City, he was showing us the way they lived. And it was actually very mesmerizing because I love things. And I loved looking at all the, and details, of those things. Then the other thing was there was this fantasy going on between the cousin and Archer that never really actually was acted out on, because then it would have created disillusionment. And so, everybody who has fantasies always at some point reaches a point of, oh, this is the way I imagine it in my mind, but in real life, this is really kind of ugly. You know what I'm saying? And so Scorsese's a brilliant director. It's a wonderful, and the script in 17 days. What do you guys think about that?
It's amazing. So I have to tell you, one of my most favorite parts of the film is at the beginning where they're at the opera house, when Newland Archer goes up into the box. And there's this moment where Michele Pfiffer, the Countess Olenska, has her eagle feathered fan, and she's passing it out across the audience, and she's having a remembrance. I'm going to read this passage from the novel because it follows very closely to the film. So this is the Countess Olenska speaking to Newland Archer. "We did used to play together, didn't we?" she asked, turning her grave eyes to his. "You were a horrid boy and kissed me once behind a door, but it was your cousin Vandy Newland who never looked to me that I was in love with." Her glance swept the horseshoe curve of boxes. "Oh, how this brings it all back to me. I see everybody here in knickerbockers and pantalettes, she said, with her trailing, slightly foreign accent, her eyes returning to his face. Oh, centuries and centuries so long, she said, that I'm sure I'm dead and buried, and this dear old place is heaven, which, for reasons he could not define, struck Newland Archer as even more disrespectful way of describing New York society. But that last moment, oh, centuries and centuries, and the music is swelling here. Oh, centuries and centuries so long, she said, that I'm sure I'm dead and buried, and this dear old place is heaven. And just lovely. And that was just such a poetic moment in prose and in movement.
It was.
And that they start with the opera, the whole movie was operatic.
Opera.
It was all, and then they bring the same opera singers, the man and woman, into one of the parties. And those are the same singers that they had seen in the beginning of the opera, and brings them in to sing at one of the big soiree events that they had. And I think, Scorsese was bringing this to an operatic thing, which goes along with what you said, Kathy, which is they lived, not Winona Ryder, but probably not only Newland, but Michele Pfiffer lived in an idealized, like dream world. And that's why, again, it's like, I'm just fascinated with the irony of the term, because then you did have, of course, that other guy, and he was cheating on Mary Beth Hurt, and, there was so much decadence there, actually. And yet she calls it the Age of Innocence. I'm fascinated.
Mhm.
So, but now we have to, and I don't know if you know this, but the narration is done by Joanne Woodward.
Yes. Yes,
No.
that was Joanne Woodward.
Oh, I love her. I did not know that.
You, at the very end, you had to wait through all of the, everything, and then it said narrated by Joanne Woodward.
There also is another Easter egg in the film. There is a portrait of Joanne Woodward in period costume in the film, and I'm going to have to go back and look for it. I've not spotted
I'm going to
it.
go back and watch it again tonight and look for it, because I love Joanne Woodward. Oh my goodness. Now, how did she get brought into this? Any backstory on that? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if she had a relationship with Martin Scorsese, if casting people reached out to her. I don't know how that came to be, but what a lovely voice to narrate the film.
And don't you think, like, for me, that's what made it all possible, because it was Edith Wharton's voice. I mean, just think of it. It was her story she was telling. Joanne Woodward was her voice, was the narrative point of view of the film, and was woven through it. So when we think of 17 days to write a film script, well, they had a narrative voice that was cohesively running through, I think, drawn exactly from the text. I don't think modified much from the text. So that would help hold the structure together, that narrative. I mean, I love that she kept coming in and going out and coming in and going out.
Martin Scorsese is the wedding photographer photographing Mae Wellen.
Oh my gosh. I love it when, actors and writers get cameos in their own films or other people's films. I just think those are, I missed that too. I'm going to go back and watch it again. So anyway, how fascinating. I cannot hardly believe that.
Now, I have to tell you, Kathy, and one of my favorite characters, though, is Mrs. Mingott, played by Miriam Margolis. Now,
Marvelous.
She was amazing. She was upset. Apparently, this is behind the scenes, and it might just all be rumor, but she felt like because Winona Ryder had been nominated, that knocked her out of a nomination. She was a little bit bitter about that. But it said that between takes, when they were filming, that she would sometimes flash her breasts to the crew because she thought they deserved a treat.
Wow.
She was a hoot.
Who was this, Winona?
No, this was the actress, the older actress. Her name is Miriam Margolis, and she played Mrs. Mingott, the grand dame of the family.
Oh.
And she would flash her boobs at the crew.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's a gift.
It's a
true.
gift. They deserve a treat.
And I bet she had a pair of boobs on her too, because she was a substantial person.
She was Rubenesque.
Ruben.
Inside information, Robert. Do you have a little inside person that's telling you these stories? Or where?
No, I wish. No, just research and rabbit holes I go down.
It's amazing some of the things that you learn about films and so much of this, you guys, is on YouTube. There's interviews with Martin Scorsese. There's just all kinds of little snippets or the songs from the films. And that's always a big part too, to me, is if you have a great sound track for a film, it can make, I always think about the film Somewhere in Time. That film never would have been as romantic and fantasized as everybody fell in love with it if it hadn't had that great soaring music.
Yeah, rock on and on.
Yeah, beautiful. Who
wrote the music, Robert? Do you know who was the?
I can find out quickly. I don't recall. But the score was wonderful. What's interesting is that up to that time, Martin Scorsese had really only done gangster films. And there was a friend of his who said, if you ever want to write, or if you ever want to direct a love story, do this one. And he handed him Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence. And he didn't read it until like 7 years later. And then he read it and he said, yes, this is the film that I'll make.
Yeah.
When you think about all of his films that he's done through the decades, it's incredible. The range, this one was, though, so unique in the fact of the inanimate objects, the panning of the tables and the
roses, the
paintings on the wall. And I was just like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I watched a movie that I fell in love with the house, and I kept freezing it and just looking at every aspect of the silk papered walls and velvet drapes and the color. I was just like, okay, if I could ever live in a house, it would be this one. And maybe I'm the only person in the world that ever does that. But I also like to zoom in on things like, what they're wearing and how they wear it. And there's a lot of subtle things done with body language, and Michele Pfiffer was very good.
So I had the question, Ruthie, the answer to your question. It was Elmer Bernstein who wrote the score, and he was nominated for an Academy Award. He didn't win, but he was nominated.
Because it was gorgeous. And then that opening with the roses. And that they were a theme throughout the whole movie, the idea of a rose, That's
another thing that shows abundant wealth. When you have amazing flowers throughout your whole home, most people do not have, on every available place, an arrangement. Not just flowers, but they usually had someone that full-time, that's what they did. They went and cut the flowers and then arranged them for the rooms. And they were very meticulous about them. And at that time, each one of those flowers had a significance, a meaning. So in Victorian times, they actually had a book on what the meanings of certain flowers, or even the colors of what certain roses and different things meant. I've always found that fascinating too. Yeah.
There's this pattern of speech that I've just fixated on. They're at the dinner table. Newland Archer is with his spinster sister and his mother, and they're she's talking about the Beaufort man, and she says they used to say, keep that Beaufort boy away from the girls.
The girls.
The girls.
I love it. the gulls. That's
Well, I think you've hit on something that I didn't even think much about, which was, how was he shaped by being the only male in his family?
And
It was
solely
not-
responsible.
Mhm.
They were, he was their lifeline.
Yeah. So that maybe there was a whole survival thing, like he had to not dirty or sully the name by coming together, and that's sort of similar to what we talked about last week.
Magnificent Ambersons.
Yeah.
And we could actually take the last three films and do comparisons of interesting similarities, even though they're not exactly set in the exact same time thing. But we can also see how slow things have been to change, because there are actually, to this day, still people, who look the other way when the husband is unfaithful,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And change happens slow, but it is happening. It's definitely happening now. So we're going to be, it'll be interesting to compare a movie at this time frame with maybe a similar love triangle to that time of when that film was made too. So
Kathy, I have to tell you something. So, when you talked about the china, well, I had a cousin who collected china, and she passed away, and she left me. She was an art collector and china and all this. I have some of that exact china.
that exact china?
The exact china.
Oh
The
my
one with
gosh.
the gold, and I'll take some pictures of it.
You're going to have to do a live FaceTime where you slowly pan it all with soaring music playing in the background and going, in tribute of Martin Scorsese.
Now,
And
ladies,
how-
you're edging on R-rated here. You're obsessing over China here.
Well, at that time and nowadays, I ask my children who wants my wedding china, and they go, give it to Goodwill, Mom. Give it to Goodwill. I actually gave it to a bed and breakfast that does weddings, because it was all the white with the sterling and the lace, and because they do weddings, and I gave it away because nobody wants china anymore. Isn't that interesting how times have changed? Or their grandmother's silver.
Yeah, nobody wants silver.
Nobody wants that
You
anymore.
can't give it away unless they melt it down, honestly. And they're always
And they
looking,
store it.
is it really sterling and all that? Yeah.
I guess I would say that my generation is the last generation to truly appreciate those handed down things, because my kids are kind of like that. What is their name? Kalo, the Japanese person says you should only have 30 books in your house. I go, 30?
Oh, Marie Kondo? Is that her name?
Yes, Marie. And I go, that's blasphemy. How could I only have 30 books? I'm the pulpwood queen. I have thousands of books in my home. How could I? But I reread them. I do. I reread the books, especially when I pick the book, I read it once, and then before it happens again, I reread it, because a lot of time might have gone by. But I just can't imagine. I have all my pulpwood queen books, all of them from inception, 21 years of picking books, and then the autograph book collections. And does anybody have a copy of Age of Innocence?
I have it on my Kindle. I do not have a hard copy version of it.
I realize that I do not have a copy of it. And I think I saw on eBay one of those where they resell, classics, and a signed copy of that book. That's kids' college fund there. It's up for a lot of money now. So I did not have a copy of that book, but I think I'm going to have to invest in getting one. So because I always am interested to. Years ago at the bookstore I used to work when I was a lowly children's bookstore manager and event coordinator, we had a book and film club where we would read the book and then we watch the film and compare the two. And to me, the best case perfection of book to film was To Kill a Mockingbird. Of course, the film was abbreviated, but it held true to the original story. A lot of these movies that we're seeing based upon Shakespearean, plays made to movies or classics made to film, I hardly recognize them. I don't know if you have that same experience, but I do watch a lot of films. I'm as big a film buff as I am a reader. And the reason why Robert is my co-host is because I just met Robert at our last year's book club convention, but he's into everything. And I'm listening to him talk and I go, and then when I started the book and film club, he was there every time and he had such great insight. I go, oh my gosh. And we've never met in person. We talk all the time, almost every day. And I think that is the wonderful thing about the International Public Queens and Timber Guys Book Club, because the connections that you make with people, you'll find, Wandra, Bill, that the more people that you meet, you're going to all of a sudden go, oh my gosh. In fact, two of my authors that met at Girlfriend Weekend ended up having books coming out at the same time, and they did a book tour together called, it was called Wing and a Prayer book tour. And it was hilarious to follow them because they were of two totally different type of mindsets, but they met at Girlfriend Weekend and they bonded. And now they're, we always refer to River Jordan and Shelley Rushing Tomlinson as two of the most unlikely paired people to go on book tour together, but it's fascinating. So now we started this book and film club this year, and I haven't even told Robert, maybe I have, but because I have so many of my authors' books through the years coming out in film, this coming 2022 summer, you know how I have our annual book club convention? Mm-hmm. I want to have an annual Pulpwood Queen Timber Guy, International Timber Guy film convention where we are scheduled to watch a film and you watch it on your own. Then we come back together and I'm going to see if I can bring in some of the authors that, yes. And just to give you a little preview of that, when you come to our convention this year, Vince Spinato, who was one of our books this past year, has done a documentary of his life. It's the most fascinating story I've ever heard about a young man who leaves college, goes to California, and talks himself into being the apprentice for a chemist for a very famous California beauty line. And he's now chemist to the stars. I mean, he's actually doing the fragrance for the 100th anniversary birthday for Judy Garland. And he's worked with every celebrity and he's done a documentary, and his life is very interesting to say the least. You've got to read his book, My Pursuit of Beauty. And he came into my picture and he is an amazing person, but we're going to hear him speak and we're going to be able to watch his documentary we're going to be doing a screening of it. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now, back to our book for the night. When we think about the main actors who played in this film, are all of you familiar with all three of the, Daniel Day-Lewis and Michele and Winona Ryder? Is this an unusual, I guess, trio to kind of put together? I kind of think it is.
Well, I think this is accurate. I think that those three characters were the first three cast, and I think that they were the first choice.
Wow. Now that's amazing. And they're so different in acting styles and in choices of movies. I mean, I'm telling you, the very first film I saw Michele Pfiffer in was Grease 2. I love that movie. I think I went to see it in my hometown theater 3 times. I loved it so much. She was just so cute and she could sing. Yeah, and you know where the backstory on that was? She was working in a Ralph's grocery store in California as a checker. And that's where she was discovered. Yep. In a Ralph's grocery store, she was a checker. I can just see her chewing gum and, you know, ringing up those items and everything. And then the next thing you know, she's been in everything from just a million films and still keeps going. She was hysterical in Hairspray, was one of the more recent things I've seen her in. But she can sing. And actors that can sing always do interesting roles, you know?
What was the movie that she was in? I'm just blanking out, with the two brothers.
That
and
was
Bo
The
Bridges.
Fabulous Baker Boys.
Yes,
the Fabulous Baker. That was,
she was wonderful in that.
she was spot on. That was a fabulous movie. And but I love all three of those actors. The Bridge, you know, Lloyd Bridges' sons, they were incredible in it. And I still enjoy I loved the older, which one's the older brother?
Bo is so
the
older.
younger brother. Wasn't he the one that starred in True Grit? The new version of True Grit?
Oh, no, I think that's the
That's Jeff.
gorgeous one, the one I'm in love with. That was the Great Lebowski.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff,
Yeah.
Bridges.
Oh, I'm in love with him. I
Jeff Bridges is a good actor.
So can I swivel a little pivot here? So Robert, I want to ask you, can you put this book at all in the context of Edith Wharton's other books and what she, I mean, this won a Pulitzer Prize. How did she, you know, like just in terms of
And the first woman, I did not know that. Yeah.
in terms of her point of view, in terms of the kinds of things that she wrote and what she was trying to say?
Well, you know, she had she came from a similar background. You know, she had an inside view, an inside perspective of the people of that class, and so she was able to weave her stories from her point of view. And she was never critical of it, but you know, she was as honest as she could be about it. The only other novel I've read, The House of Mirth, which is similar in tone to The Age of Innocence. I've not studied a great deal of Edith Wharton, but she had a fascinating life, and she was an amazing writer and ahead of her time.
Here we go down the rabbit hole. Here we go.
Well, I think that she was kind of known for covertly lifting up the concept of feminism. I really do think she was.
Well, if she got the first woman's Pulitzer, she's got off to.
But look at what the film was really trying to say. You know, how Michele Pfiffer, who was living a daring life and trying to break away from the rigidity of not only class but expectation, and then how ostracized she was, and then how Winona Ryder just became a kind of martyr, really, in it. And I think that she wanted you to see that something needed to change.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating.
So here's a little insight into her life. It says, American children's stories containing slang were forbidden in Wharton's childhood home. This included such popular authors as Mark Twain, Bret Harte, or Uncle Remus. She was allowed to read Louisa May Alcott, but Wharton preferred Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland and Charles Kingsley's Water Babies.
And there's where the fantasy comes in.
Fantasy and ideal.
Her mother was very controlling of what she read, and elements of her mother would appear in characters in her novels.
And
So
her book, Ethan Frome is very different.
Yes.
Different class, a different mood.
Oh, I forgot about Ethan Frome.
I forgot about that one too.
But it tries to explore workings of people, their morality or their thoughts and things like that in both. I didn't read The House of Mirth, but Ethan Frome and Age of Innocence, and I think that's a commonality there.
Mhm.
Is that what you think, Robert?
I agree. I think that if she's any character in the Age of Innocence, she's Countess Olenska, a woman who longs to have reign over her own agency. And I think that that's what she was trying to tell and do to Ruthie's point in the novel The Age of Innocence. And Edith Wharton lived her life much not unlike Countess Olenska. She moved off, to Europe. She was an expat for a bit, I think. So she did long to have agency over her own life. So, she was an early feminist.
I think so. And I also think, yes, and she allowed that the characters have had this subtextual life that she tried to illuminate, even though they were kind of forced into a box. Now I have to say something else. What's her name? Minkus, or the grand dame. Minkin, the grandmother or grand dame or aunt or whatever she was. Come on, she was all for Wolinska. She was outrageous and audacious in her own way. She loved shocking people.
And she did, and yet she was still allowed to reign in her position, as Grand Dame of New York society. And you're right, there's that past where her body, no longer allowed her to take the stairs, so she took her bedroom down to the lower parlor, which was unheard of. It's like women of, I forget the description, but women of questionable morals, did such things.
And then remember, they carried her out like Cleopatra. She had to be carried out.
She had a mild stroke, and she thought she attributed it to having an overindulgent Thanksgiving.
I know. And she was constantly eating, but she was edgy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Though she reigned tightly over the rules and mores of society, she broke many of them herself.
Well, isn't that what happened to most people when they get of a certain age?
Yeah.
They go, screw it.
What the heck?
Let's play my roles now, baby. So yeah, it's I'm speaking for myself. Okay.
You can include me in that.
Yeah, we know that.
Well, we kind of become invisible. But if you become a kind of a character, you know what I'm saying? People remember you. I mean, it doesn't matter where I go. Some young person's coming up to me and they go, man, I really love your blue hair. Because if you guys don't know me, I change my look. I'm just like a chameleon. And I found that, it's much better than, I'm used to working around kids all the time because I've had so many youth groups and went back to college at 59. So I'm with all these 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And none of them knew how old I was until one day I told them and they go, wait a minute, you're not my mom's age? And I go, no, I'm older than your grandma. We're like, what? And they said, you're how old? And I go, I think I was probably 61 or 62 at the time. They go, they were just like, it was like, oh, well, let's go back to work. After a while, they just forgot it. But
Kathy, you're ageless. You're just ageless. You're just ageless.
I think as we get older, we lose shame. We lose shame because we don't. Other people are not that. What they think.
You gain wisdom that the young can't deny.
Exactly, Bill. And what's your perspective on this as we get older? Do you have a different philosophy about things? Let's get the guy perspective here.
Well, I was just sitting here and I was chuckling to myself because I went down to my grandmother's, Granny, and I got left at the house. I don't know what it was, something the parents had to do and everything else, but I'm down in Yonkers, New York, and I'm the only kid that got left with Granny. And because I could draw on the board, she liked my drawing, and she was going to be baking deep dish apple pie, and I was going to help. So all the family goes fluttering all off, and it's just Granny and me. And she sits down and says, we'll have a cup of tea, because that's what proper ladies do. They have a cup of tea. And she looked over there. She looked over there. She locked the back door. She got out the key. She says, now do me a favor, Bill. Go up into my bedroom, and under the bed, you'll find the coffee can. Bring it down. And we had coffee when no one was watching.
And how old were you, Bill?
Oh, I was 9, 7, 9, a young kid. One time I was 14 and I had to help her again. She came in, she says, Bill, you got to help me. I was the only one in the house. She says, I'm in pain. She says, you got to take the padding out. So she kind of lifts up. She had a chunk of wedged cotton in her back. She had been run over by a trolley car, a horse-drawn trolley car. And it had crushed her spine, but it hadn't severed. And the doctor said, you'll never have children. You'll never walk again. You'll never, never. And she had, 9 kids, but
So she had to
she was
wear
in-
this pad.
she was
Yeah.
in such pain. She needed help. She couldn't reach around and move the pad, put a new one in. So just brilliant ladies. Now she lived right here in the 20s. She comes from this 1800s to the 19. She held on to the old. Women are proper. We have to. And yet the world was changing, because I'm with the World War II babies. And we're rewriting the world as it is. And so, but Granny could do just about anything she damn well pleased, because she had wisdom none of us were going to ever attain.
That's really great. Have you ever written about her?
No, I have not yet.
I think you
My
should.
uncle wrote a book about her. That he wrote a memoir that was beautiful. He did her the justice that she deserved. Another story. Proper women don't use alcohol. We don't use alcohol. My Uncle Willie got killed over in Market's Garden over in Belgium. So it was her one and only time to go to see his grave.
Oh.
We got the family together, we got the tickets, and she's getting more nervous and nervous. And finally, Uncle Jack, he's a doctor, he says, look, you don't have to be nervous. I've got this all taken care of. I have a very special medicine. Just before we get on the plane, you'll take this, a sip of, just like cough syrup. You take this medicine and you'll be fine. Oh, thank you, Jack. Oh, thank you. So he gives us this little sherry glass and she's sipping away. She said, oh, this tastes nice. Oh, it's tingly. Oh, I like that. Yeah, got a little bit more. Okay, good. Yeah. Boom, she's out. He gave her sherry. She slept the whole way over. Jack, I think I need a little bit more of that medicine now. You almost turned her into a drunk.
Granny from the Beverly Hillbillies with her family recipe,
Yeah, a little
Family
bit.
recipe.
So
Those
there's
are
a
great
line.
stories. You should write those down, because if you don't, even though you're
They'll be lost.
sure, they'll be lost forever. And those are run over by a trolley. My God. And she was, that's just devastating to think about, a child get running over by a horse-drawn,
Yeah.
trolley. That's quite a story. You could always fictionalize it, It's always, there's a book called Cold Sassy Tree, and it's told from the perspective of the 16-year-old grandson. And it's a story, it's Olive Burns, it's one of my favorite books of all time, but Granny and Grandma, they don't have any running water, electricity. They've just lived together their whole life and had all these kids. Everybody goes there every Sunday, and Granny ups and croaks. And he buries her, under as they have her body laid out in the casket, he makes a blanket of roses to put across, and it's all told by this young boy. And then you hear the record skip across the record to the future. He owns the general store, and there's a new 40-year-old milliner who comes to work to town, and she's got a secret past. and she's 40, maybe 40 years old, and very attractive. And Grandpa marries the milliner. And that's where the story begins. And I'm telling you, they get all new appliances, electricity, in-house plumbing. The daughters are in a tizzy because what would mamas think, you know? And those are the stories. And that would be an incredible story. I think that would be great, Bill. But I'm off track. We've strayed away like we usually do.
We went down that rabbit hole.
We went down that rabbit hole. But the thing about the Book and Film Club is a discussion of a film that springboards us into sharing our own stories. And the stories that we share are what connect us as people. And we may have some shared story similarities. And then we may have some like, oh my gosh, that really happened. I know, Wandra, you've got some incredible stories. I know you've got some incredible stories that I hope when you jump on board that you'll share some of your personal. How in the world did you get to San Antonio?
Well, there's a funny story. I'm a psychotherapist, so I had a private practice in Corpus Christi. And, I could not get COBRA. My COBRA insurance expired, and it's very expensive to begin with. And I could not get insurance, medical insurance. So anyway, I was going on. I was single then. Anyway, a friend of mine says, well, I know some people in Victoria. I went to do some work there, and I told this person about you. So just go visit them. So I figured, well, at that time, when was it? It was early 2000. And at that time, Victoria was the city every year, the richest city. They had the most millionaires per capita. Do you know that? Little Victoria, Texas. And, my son lived in Houston, so I'll drive, I think it was 50 something or whatever, the highway. And I never go through Victoria itself. It bypasses Victoria outskirts. So I said, well, what the heck? So one day it was light, so I canceled all the appointments, and I decided to go to Victoria. Let me see what it looks like. So I told them that I was coming, these people that I'm supposed to meet. And I said I was coming. And so I drove over there, and they waited for me, and they took me to the best restaurant in Victoria, which was Red Lobster. we had pasta, seafood pasta there. And then it was two ladies. One was a therapist, one was a clinical director. She said, well, before you leave, I want to show you something. We're going to go back to Devereux. It was a Devereux treatment center at the time. It was the largest psychological treatment center in the world. So they bring me there. So then says, I want to introduce you to somebody. So I said, okay. So it turns out it's a human resources person. So I was looking for a job, and I sat down and I was thinking, what the heck? I'm going to see what they offer. So the human resources person writes the number down, right? How much they're going to pay. And as she was telling me, she said, don't walk away. Don't walk away. So I knew I had room to negotiate. So I negotiated a higher salary and had them pay for moving. So I took the job. And so I moved to Victoria. And then I met a guy and got married. And that was the year the 9/11 happened. So that was about 2001. And there was a year later or something, there was Katrina. When did Katrina happen?
15 years ago.
Well,
happened on my birthday.
That devastated the whole region, right?
Right.
Right after that, there was another hurricane that was coming. And by that time, I retired, and I was playing mahjong with. I'm a mahjong player. I learned how to play mahjong.
I want to learn how.
Yeah, and I was playing with like mayor's wife, the hospital CEO's wife and all of that. Anyway, so they get phone calls from their husbands. And they come back and said, y'all, they have a meeting. The city leaders have a meeting. We're gonna evacuate the whole city. So I called my husband and said, tie down all the outdoor furniture and bring it in and all of that stuff, and we're gonna leave. So the next morning, early in the morning, I think we left at about 4:30 a.m.
Oh
We
my
just
gosh.
Off and went on I-10 to the west where the sun is. Go toward the sun. We drive, call the hotels. Every hotel all along the way. Every hotel in Texas is booked.
But
So
yeah.
we ended up going to New Mexico. We passed. we got we went to that cave, that Carlsbad cabin.
Yes,
And
yes. Oh my gosh.
we passed the Roswell or something with the alien stuff. Anyway, we found a little motel. We ended up staying there. Well, the hurricane didn't really hit that hard. So instead of 2 days, we say 1 night, and then we headed home. When we came, quite a few properties were damaged and stuff like that. But the city didn't evacuate. So we were the only ones that took off. So we said, well, we're not going to do this again. It's going to happen again. We're not going to do this again. So we used to come to San Antonio. That's how we came to San Antonio, because San Antonio doesn't have those problems. The only thing we have is flash flooding, but we know it. So that's how we came to San Antonio, and I love this city. You need to come.
My daughter lived there for a while because her husband worked for the University of Texas in San Antonio. And do you know that's the biggest campus in the state is the San Antonio? It's not Austin, it's the San Antonio. And they loved it, but they missed trees, so.
Oh, we have a lot of trees.
There weren't trees where they lived. They were on campus.
Oh.
Because he worked for the university. So they were in, like married student housing. But I went down there lots of times and we had a lot of fun. It's a beautiful.
There is a new development called Pearl Brewery. And some of the properties around there near the San Antonio Riverwalk, a lot of them were like about 600 square feet homes. And they were really in bad repair. And I probably could have gotten them for like $30,000. I mean, you couldn't do anything with those houses. I mean, it was in bad shape. Well, after the development came, well, I'll tell you what the development has. It has a 5-star boutique hotel where Cher came and said that was the best 5-star hotel she has ever been. Anyway, so after that development came, lots of condos were built, lots of lifestyle apartments were built, and those little homes, you cannot touch it below 500,000, the way it is, all falling apart. That
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to.
Development raised the value, property value all the way around, and we have many restaurants cooked by the chefs, well-known chefs.
Hang on just a second. Bill's trying to share.
I need to bow out because I'm managing another meeting, so I got to go there. So
Okay, well, thank you.
God bless, and we'll see you again.
Glad you're here.
Anytime. Great to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
So Kathy, we're getting close to the hour, but I wanted to plug anyone that's listening should check out Wandra Chang's novel. Am I pronouncing this correctly? Sonju,
yes.
Sonju. And I love first lines in novels, so I'm going to read it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
Soul, 1946. At the sight of the 2 tall Americans in military uniforms walking ahead of her toward the Korean Central Administration Building, Sonju's heart beat a little faster. What a great beginning. And
It's a great beginning. It's a great book. And we'll have lots of exciting news about that soon. So how do we have any famous quotes from the...
I do. So there are a couple of things that I want to share. Let me find my place here. So this to me is a very poignant moment and heartbreaking. And I think this encapsulates really what most individuals living in society might feel like at some point, especially Countess Olenska. And this is what she says. And I believe she says this in a scene with Newland Archer. The real loneliness is living amongst all these kind people who only ask one to pretend.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Think about that. Say that one more time.
The real loneliness is living among all these kind people who only ask one to pretend.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
You know, can I just say one thing? Because I want to refer back to TK's class, that wonderful class.
The writing class we just had,
Oh,
yeah.
man, it was so great. And I've been just thinking and thinking and thinking about it. And one of the things that I was aware of in the movie for me was how TK kept saying, you've got to go from tension to release, tension to release, then another tension and another release. And when I look back at the movie, Scorsese, and maybe this is, I haven't read the book for a long time. I read it in college, so it's been a long time. And I was aware, where were the releases? The Grand Dame would release in terms of perspective or laughter or something like that. But, there wasn't much of a release. It was like you were building, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Are they going to, claim their love? Are they going to, and the big release was his kissing her foot. Yeah. The big release was his, kissing her little, wrist, that was fascinating to me.
And I agree with you. I think that there is a sense of constant tension in one within which one can never truly let go.
Right, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Keeping that everything in control to create that image that, you're above and you're, of this proper civilized society. It's fascinating.
And that's why I thought at the very end, when it was, his children who had grown up and had a really different point of view of the world. They were not like the parents, and he had this opportunity for the release. I was like going, oh, she's up there and he's got his cane and, I'm like going, and he's looking up there and I'm wanting the release so bad. I'm wanting her at least to look out and see him and him see her something. And he just turns around and walks away.
So Edith Wharton, Ruthie, does have a sense of humor though. This is spoken tongue in cheek in dialogue. We can't behave like people in novels though, can we?
That's funny. That is funny. Well, that was a great film. I'm going to watch it again because I got to find Martin Scorsese, and I've definitely got to listen for Joanne Woodward. But before we go, let's talk about next week, Robert.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let me pull. I just closed my iPad. Give me just 2 quick seconds. So next week we've got an interesting film choice, and I believe that this is Miss Kathy Murphy's. Where do we go?
I know what.
Okay, here we go. Next week is the modern film starring Diane Keaton, Palms.
I just saw this film, and I laughed so hard. It's one of these films where it will have you crying one moment and laughing out loud the next. But it's a story about a woman who something life-changing happens to her. She sells her home and she moves into a gated assisted living type place, which I live in a gated community, and I found it all too similar because when I moved in, I just thought it was a gated community. I didn't realize that everybody here was older than me. I was like, and they go, you live at Holly Lake? And I go, yeah. Well, most people only live there about 10 years and then they go on to, where. And what? Now I've been here 8 years. Now I'm 60.
Florida?
They go to Florida. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they go to Florida with where Mandy's at. No, but Diane Keaton is one of my favorite actors. I just read her autobiography, which is fabulous. If you haven't read it, you've got to read it. And in this film, I watched two back-to-back Diane Keaton films. One is a new one. That's where she's living in London and she lives in a building and her husband dies. And she ends up making friends with a homeless man from Scotland who lives in the woods back behind their building. It's the most weirdest pairing I've ever seen in my life. It was a fabulous film. Why can't I think of it? But if you type in Diane Keaton in your whatever streaming service you watch, it'll come up. But Poms is short for pom-poms, cheerleader pom-poms. And
Kathy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do have to plug something you said. So I watched this afternoon the one of I Am Someone's Child, the Regina. Oh my God. So at first I thought, oh, this is not that great. I don't know about the script. Halfway through, I'm like sobbing my way through the whole.
This is a true story.
I know. And this is a novelist now. She's a writer.
She wrote the book Somebody Someone, and you need to read it because it really tells the real story. This was kind of the Hollywood glossed up view, but even the Hollywood glossed up view of I'm Somebody Someone is devastating. But when you read the real book, her real dad was the right-hand man to Barry White. And this little girl lived homeless her whole life. And you've got to read it. And she's beautiful in person. Go to YouTube and type in Regina Louise and watch her poetry readings. She's she owns a Redken salon in San Francisco. And she is quite something. But the film, I Am Somebody Someone, is great. Now, I told you about another film too.
Yeah, the one Oprah Winfrey one. I haven't seen that one yet.
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Yes. If you have not seen either one of these films, I highly recommend those. And then, of course, for 9/11, I said everybody needs to watch My Name is Khan, which is the story about a Muslim man who comes to America and falls in love with a Hindi hairdresser in San Francisco. It's a love story, but the movie begins when 9/11 happens. And his last name is Khan, a Muslim name. I'm not going to say anything more, but it's about love. And it's about how we all need to, and I'll tear up over this, how we all need to share our stories and love everybody and accept that we don't look the same, we don't talk the same, we have different cultures and different beliefs, but we're all human beings and we need to be all on the same page that everybody is equal in this world. And that's these three films really will bring it all to light. So again, these are ones that I would love to share at our Pulpwood Queen Timber Guy International Film Festival because they're world stories and they're based upon our books that we read. So in my opinion, every book that I read, including yours, Wandra, these play out in my head as a movie. And if any producers or people in Hollywood are watching, our books make the best stories. And that's why we have 800 chapters of Pulpwood Queens in the States and now out in 21 countries. And I just met a couple from India today, and I've been invited to their house for dinner. So excited.
So Kathy,
So excited. Yeah.
Kathy, so do you mind if I read the very, very tail end of The Age of Innocence?
Yes.
He sat for a long time on the bench in the thickening dusk, his eyes never turning from the balcony. At length, a light shone through the windows. A moment later, a manservant came out on the balcony, drew up the awnings and closed the shutters. At that, as if it had been the signal he waited for, Newland Archer got up slowly and walked back alone to the hotel.
Actually, I think that's a perfect ending. I think it's a perfect ending. It's not a resolution but it's real. it's a realistic, because that's the way life is. It's all people, you know, if we all just told our truths and quit trying to hide behind what we see should be secrets. If everybody spoke their truths in the world, it'd be a much better place. Have the conversation, people. Join our book and film club. Thank you, Wandra, for joining us. Thank you, Ruthie.
Thank you.
And next week, Diane Keaton is a cheerleader. So bring
Sounds like fun.
songs. We will see you next week on the Book and Film Club, 6:30 p.m. And don't forget, we have a new name for our blog, The Pulpwood Queen Presents Kathy's Picks. And we've got an author featured each week and every Tuesday night. It's all up on our calendar of events. And Mandy's now creating events for our events on Facebook and social media. Mandy had to leave because she's got 3 little dogs that demand a lot of attention. But Mandy is a rock star when it comes to getting us all together on the same page. So, you know, I hope everybody understands that what she's doing with our book club is taking us to the next level. And I can't thank her enough for helping you, Wandra. She told me all about your conversation. I'm here for you anytime. I'm here for everybody. So have a wonderful reading life. We'll see you next time, and bring your popcorn. We'll see you at the movies.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye.